The arena was alive with silence. Thousands of alien voices had fallen quiet, as if the entire crowd were holding one collective breath. The air itself seemed heavy, pressing down on every chest, filling the space with thick tension. The walls of the arena glowed faintly with energy barriers, their shimmer reflecting the countless alien faces staring down into the pit. Everyone was waiting. The chains rattled first. A deep clanging noise echoed from the cage at the far end of the fighting ground. The metal doors bulged outward as something slammed into them with bone-crushing force. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sparks snapped from the old hinges. The crowd hissed with excitement, 1,000 different voices, making one sound like boiling steam. And then it came. The roar. It wasn't just a sound. It was a storm. It rolled through the arena like thunder across mountains. The roar shook the stone seats, rattled the bones in every body, and forced the weaker aliens to clutch their heads. It was fury, rage, and hunger all poured into one monstrous cry. The roar kept rising, echoing against every wall, bouncing back until it became a sea of noise that swallowed everything else. Then the doors burst open. The creature stepped into the light. It was massive, towering above the pit floor. Its shoulders were broad enough to block the glow of the barrier walls behind it. Its body was plated with scales as hard as forged iron, each one edged with sharp ridges. For glowing eyes burned like molten suns in its skull, and jagged teeth lined a mouth that dripped with thick saliva. Where the drops hit the ground, the stone hissed and sizzled, leaving smoking craters. Its claws were long and hooked, dragging lines of fire along the metal floor as it walked. Every step it took was thunder. Every breath it drew was a furnace. The crowd erupted into hissing cheers. This was no ordinary beast. This was a legend of destruction, a monster that had torn through armies. The aliens knew its record. Dozens of challengers had entered this arena against it. Not one had left alive. And today, the challenger was human. The gates opposite the beast groaned open. A figure stepped out slowly, boots crunching against the dusty ground. The contrast was almost laughable. He was not covered in armor. He had no shield generator strapped to his arm, no glowing blade of alien steel, no heavy plasma rifle. He wore only simple gear, a torn shirt clinging to his body, pants marked with dirt and cloth wrapped around his fists. His brown hair was matted from sweat, and streaks of dried blood marked his skin. Yet on his lips was a smile. It was not weak, not desperate. It was calm, quiet, steady, as if this wasn't a pit of death, but a place he already owned. The corners of his mouth tilted upward, and his eyes never wavered. The crowd reacted instantly. "Foolish," spat a scaled alien merchant, his tail twitching in amusement. "Dead already," laughed a horned warrior, flashing sharp teeth. But an old alien, wrinkled and gray, only muttered under his breath, "No, this is human." The human stopped in the center of the pit. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't even adjust his stance. He simply stood there, shoulders relaxed, eyes locked on the monster, his smile unshaken. The arena master's voice boomed from above. "The challenge begins." The beast lowered its head, muscles rippling, saliva dripping in thick ropes. It released another roar, louder than the first, making the barrier walls tremble with its force. Dust exploded from the rafters above. The ground cracked beneath its claws. Still, the human stood unmoving, his head tilted slightly, as though listening carefully to the sound. And then his smile widened. The crowd gasped. The monster roared again, so close now that the man's hair was whipped back by the wind of it. But those human eyes didn't blink. His body didn't flinch. He simply kept smiling, as if mocking death itself. For the first time, the beast hesitated. Its massive legs paused. Its claws scraped across the floor, but did not strike. Its glowing eyes narrowed, flickering with something it had never felt before. Doubt. The crowd sensed it too. The silence returned, sharper than knives. Thousands of eyes blinked, realizing what had just happened. "He made it stop," whispered a voice from the upper seats. "That's impossible," said another. The human slowly raised one hand. Not to strike, not to guard himself. He simply lifted it and tapped his chest once, over his heart, as if telling the beast, "Here I stand." The monster growled low, shaking its head, as if trying to throw away the strange fog creeping into its mind. It was a predator. It had destroyed countless prey. But never had prey looked at it like this. Never had prey smiled at the sound of its fury. The human's lips moved. His words were quiet, too soft for most in the arena to hear. But the beast caught them. "Is that all?" The crowd erupted into chaos. Some aliens shrieked in shock. Some hissed with laughter. Some trembled, realizing they had seen something impossible. The monster itself roared again, louder than ever, shaking the arena so violently that cracks split the stone benches. And yet, through the storm of noise and dust, the human's smile did not falter. His eyes burned with fire just as bright as the beast's. In that instant, the greatest challenge a monster had ever faced was revealed. Not claws, not walls, not weapons, but a human's. The moment of hesitation ended. The beast shook its head and released a deafening snarl. The hesitation that had cracked its fury only lasted a breath, but now it returned with crushing force. Its claws dug into the ground, muscles coiled like steel cables, and then it launched forward. The ground split beneath its weight as the monster charged. Every step was an earthquake, every movement a storm. The crowd erupted into cheers and roars of their own, a mix of excitement and hunger. This was what they came for. The kill, the blood, the certainty that no challenger could stand against this titan. But the human didn't run. He didn't panic. He simply adjusted his stance, lowering his body, his wrapped fists rising slowly. The smile was still there, calm and maddening. The beast's shadow swallowed him as it raised one massive claw, aiming to split him in two. The air whistled from the sheer speed of the strike. And then the human moved, not with strength, not with brute force, but with speed and precision. His body twisted just enough for the claw to scrape the ground where he had been standing. Dust exploded upward, showering both fighters, but the human had already stepped aside, sliding across the dirt floor with a dancer's grace. The crowd gasped. No one dodged the beast. No one. The monster roared in frustration, swinging again. Its claws swept sideways like a blade, enough to cut a tank in half. The human ducked, dropping low, the claw ripping the air above his head. The sound of it cracked like a whip. He rolled forward, came up on one knee, and punched once, quick, sharp, precise, into the beast's leg. The sound was small compared to the roar, just a thump against scales. It didn't draw blood. It didn't even scratch, but it made the beast stumble. The human stood again, shaking out his fist, still smiling. The crowd couldn't believe it. They hissed and shouted. "It's useless," one alien shrieked. "He cannot pierce the armor," another laughed. But others leaned forward, eyes narrowing, realizing something important. The monster attacked again, furious. Its tail whipped like a spear. The man jumped, twisting his body midair, landing lightly on the ground as the tail slammed into the stone, shattering it into shards. Before the beast could pull its tail back, the human stepped onto it and ran along the length like a bridge. The crowd gasped as a small figure sprinted toward the creature's massive torso. The beast reared up, tried to shake him off, but the human leaped, landing just below its shoulder. He drew back his fist and slammed it into a joint where scale met flesh. The hit was small, a spark against a mountain, but the beast roared in pain this time. Its claws tore the ground as it thrashed, smashing its own body against the arena walls in fury. The human dropped back to ground, rolling across the dirt before standing tall again. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Blood trickled down his arm where a sharp edge had grazed him, but his smile still remained. The crowd was no longer laughing. The laughter had turned to murmurs, then to uneasy silence. Even those who wanted to mock couldn't find their voices. The monster lowered itself again, for eyes burning locked on the human. This time its roar wasn't just fury, it was frustration. The challenger was not crumbling. The challenger was not afraid. The challenger was fighting back. The human wiped the blood from his arm, lifted his chin, and whispered, almost to himself but loud enough to carry in the silence, "You bleed. That means I can win." The words rippled through the arena. Some aliens hissed in disbelief. Others felt a strange chill in their bones. For them, Fighting the beast had never been about victory. It was always about how long you survived before death. But this human spoke of victory as if it were possible. The beast lunged again, its jaws open wide, teeth flashing like swords. The human sprinted forward, not away. He ran straight toward the storm of claws and teeth. The crowd screamed as the monster snapped its mouth shut, but the human slid low, sliding beneath the monster's head, dirt flying behind him. He came up on the other side, fists ready, and struck hard at the back of its jaw. The monster's head snapped sideways. A howl of rage and pain filled the air. The human backed away quickly, dust swirling around him, his chest heaving, but his smile still locked in place. For the first time, the beast hesitated again, not because of confusion this time, but because of pain. The crowd roared, not all in anger. Some were cheering. Some were on their feet, screaming the human's name, though they had never heard it before today. Something in them stirred, something primal. They saw the impossible happening before their eyes, and they could not help but cheer for it. The human raised his fist again, blood dripping from his knuckles now. His body shook from exhaustion, but his eyes burned like fire. The beast pounded its chest with its claws, bellowing another roar. It was not just fury now. It was defiance, a challenge answered by another. The arena was alive again, louder than ever, shaking with voices from every world. The human tilted his head, wiped the sweat from his brow, and whispered with that same calm, steady smile. Round 2, then. And the crowd knew this fight was only beginning. The arena floor was cracked and scarred. Dust floated in the air like smoke after battle. The monster's heavy breathing filled the silence between each roar, its chest rising and falling like a great furnace. Its 4 eyes blazed with fury, but behind that fury, something else flickered. It had felt pain. The beast had bled. No opponent had ever made it bleed in this arena. For years, it had crushed, shredded, and destroyed everything that dared to stand against it. Soldiers, machines, even armored beasts from other worlds. None had left a mark on its body. But the human, small and fragile by comparison, had found a weak point and struck it. The wound was small, but to the monster, it was a crack in its pride. The human stood a short distance away, fists raised, his shirt torn and stained red. His breaths came heavy, his ribs ached from near misses, and one leg trembled from the last roll. Yet his eyes were steady. His mouth curved upward in that same impossible smile. The smile cut deeper than the punches. The crowd was no longer certain of what they were watching. Aliens who had once cheered for the beast's rage now sat frozen, their gazes darting between the monster's bleeding joint and the human's unbroken stance. Some even began to whisper to one another in awe, their voices carrying through the tension-filled air. "Did you see that strike? He should have been dead by now. Why is he still smiling?" The monster let out a furious roar, louder than before, determined to drown out the whispers, determined to remind everyone, including itself, that it was still the master of this pit. The sound crashed like thunder against the walls. Dust fell from the rafters. The ground shook. But when the roar faded, the human was still there, still standing, still smiling. The beast's claws flexed, scraping the ground, sparks flying. It lunged again, moving faster than something its size should. Its shadow swallowed the human, its claws sweeping down like hammers. The human dodged barely. The claws slammed into ground, breaking stone, sending shards flying into the stands. Some aliens shielded their eyes from the debris. The man rolled, dirt streaking his arms, and came up limping slightly, but he did not retreat. He circled closer, fists still raised. The beast snapped its jaws, the sound like steel plates slamming together. The human twisted aside, the teeth grazing his shirt, ripping fabric but missing flesh. In that instant, he landed another strike, one quick, sharp blow to the beast's jaw hinge. The monster's head snapped sideways. It roared again, more in surprise and pain. And then it happened. For the first time in its long life, the monster hesitated not from doubt of its prey, but from something new, something it did not even have a word for. Its muscles tightened, its claws trembled in the air, its heart pounded in a rhythm it had never known. Its four blazing eyes widened. Fear! The human saw it. He felt the slight pause, the hesitation in the beast's next step. His smile widened. His voice carried softly, almost drowned by the noise of the crowd, but the monster heard it clear. "You're afraid of me." The word struck harder than any fist. The beast snarled, furious, as if to deny it. It slammed its claws against the ground, breaking more stone, dust clouding the arena. But the human walked through the dust slowly, his eyes locked forward, his smile steady. The crowd erupted. Some hissed in disbelief, unable to accept what they saw. Others shouted encouragement, voices of species that had never cheered for a human before. The balance was shifting, and everyone felt it. The beast charged again, claws and teeth flashing. It fought with greater fury than ever, determined to silence the doubt, to crush the strange fire building inside its chest. The human was thrown back once, his body hitting the wall of the arena with a heavy crack. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he collapsed to one knee. The crowd gasped. The monster roared, triumph in its cry, certain it had broken him. But the human laughed. It was low, rough, and filled with pain, but it was laughter. He dragged himself to his feet, wiped the blood from his lips, and lifted his fists once more. His body shook, his chest heaved, but his smile returned unbroken. The beast froze. It could not understand this. Prey did not smile after being broken. Prey begged, screamed, or died. But this human stood again, smiling, as though pain were nothing but another test. "You hit harder than the others," the man whispered, coughing blood. "Good. That means I get to hit harder too." The crowd roared with him. Entire sections stood to their feet, fists raised, their voices echoing through the arena. Aliens who had once cheered for the beast now shouted for the human. Their chants grew louder, faster, filling the space with a new rhythm, one the beast had never heard before. The rhythm of hope. The monster's chest tightened. Its claws twitched. Its glowing eyes narrowed as the impossible thought formed in its mind. Could I lose? The human stepped forward, limping, bleeding, but alive. His eyes burned brighter than the beast's flames. His voice rose above the crowd, steady and fierce. "This fight isn't over until one of us falls. And I promise you it won't be me." The beast roared again, but there was a crack in the sound now. The roar was no longer pure fury. It was laced with something the arena had never heard from the monster before. Desperation. The human's smile widened. He had seen it. He had felt it. The battle had shifted. The monster was no longer the hunter. It was the hunted. The air in the arena was hot, thick with dust and tension. The crowd's roars rolled like waves, their voices carrying through the entire stadium. Some shouted for the beast. Others now cried out for the human. The sound mixed into chaos, and the monsters for burning eyes shifted nervously. It was angry, it was afraid, and it hated that feeling. With a deafening snarl, the beast lunged again. Its claws tore across the ground, ripping through stone like paper. The human dodged, but too late. One claw scraped his side, tearing open his shirt and carving a bloody line across his ribs. He gasped in pain, stumbling, but stayed on his feet. The crowd hissed. Blood was spraying down his side, staining his torn clothes. The monster's roar thundered again, filled with savage triumph. It pressed forward, faster, determined to finish what it started. The human lifted his fists, but this time his defense faltered. The beast's tail whipped around, faster than lightning. It slammed into his chest with the force of a hammer. The sound of ribs cracking echoed through the arena. The man flew backward, smashing into the barrier wall. He collapsed to the ground, coughing blood, his body shuddering in shock. The crowd screamed. Some cheered the monster, believing the end had come. Others gasped in horror, hands over their mouths. Even those who had doubted before now leaned forward, praying somehow the human would rise again. The beast lowered its head, growling. Its claws dug into the dirt as it prepared to charge once more, eager to crush the broken human once and for all. But then movement. Slowly, painfully, the man pushed his palms against the ground. His arms shook. His body trembled with every motion. Blood ran down his chin. His chest heaved with ragged breaths. And then he stood, The crowd exploded into a frenzy. Cheers, screams, shouts. Every kind of sound filled the arena. The beast froze, its burning eyes narrowing. This was impossible. No prey could survive those hits. No prey should still be standing. But there he was, broken ribs, bleeding side, limbs shaking, and still smiling. It wasn't a wide smile this time. It was faint, cracked with pain, but it was there, calm, unshaken. The human raised one fist weakly, as if daring the beast to try again. His voice was hoarse, blood dripping with every word, but it carried across the arena clearly. You'll have to hit harder. The crowd roared. Entire sections rose to their feet, chanting, screaming his defiance back at the monster. Hope spread like fire. The beast roared again, furious beyond reason. It charged, claws flashing. The human braced himself, limping forward to meet the attack. He dodged left, but the claw still caught his shoulder, tearing flesh. He cried out, but twisted his body, slamming his wrapped fist into the same weak joint he had struck earlier. The beast bellowed in pain, staggering. Blood spattered across the ground. The human stumbled back, clutching his bleeding shoulder, but his eyes never left the monster's. He forced himself upright again, his body broken, but his spirit blazing. The monster's chest rose and fell faster now. Its claws trembled. It had struck with full power, broken ribs, torn flesh, and still the human refused to fall. Still he smiled. Fear spread deeper into the beast's mind. A predator's nightmare, prey that would not die. The human staggered forward again, every step leaving red stains on the ground. He raised his fists once more, blood dripping from his knuckles. His lips parted, and he whispered so only the beast could hear, "This smile is the last thing you'll see." The monster roared in rage and swung both claws down at once. The human twisted, barely dodging one, but the other slammed into his side. His body flew across the pit again, skidding to the dirt, leaving a long trail of blood. The crowd gasped. Some alien screamed for him to stay down. Others shouted his name. Though most did not know it, they screamed, "Human! Human!" with desperate voices. The monster stomped forward, claws raised for the final strike. It loomed above him like a mountain of death. The arena shook with every step. The man coughed blood, his vision blurred. His body begged him to stay down. Every bone screamed, every muscle burned. He could barely breathe, but in his chest, his heart beat louder. He pushed himself up again. Slowly, shakily. His legs wobbled, his body bent. Blood ran down his arm, his face, his ribs. His fists barely rose. But he stood, and he smiled. The arena went silent. Tens of thousands of aliens held their breath. The monster froze, claws still raised. Its four burning eyes widened. No matter what it did, this human kept standing. The human's voice was weak, cracked, but it cut through the silence like steel. "You're strong, but I'm stronger where it matters." The beast's claws trembled in the air. The roar it let out was not pure fury anymore. It was mixed with something else, confusion, frustration, desperation. The crowd erupted, louder than ever. Many no longer cheered the beast. They screamed for the human. They pounded their fists, stomped their feet, their voices uniting in one chant that shook the walls. "Human! Human! Human!" The monster's chest tightened. Its claws lowered slightly. Its burning eyes filled with something it had never felt in battle. Uncertainty. The human staggered one step closer, blood dripping with every movement. He looked up at the towering beast, his smile faint but unbroken. "Your fury can break bones," he whispered, "but it will never break me." The crowd thundered in agreement. And for the first time, the beast looked down at its prey and wondered if it could win. The arena floor looked like a battlefield. Stones were cracked, dust floated in the air, and trails of blood painted the dirt. The beast's blood burned black against the ground, while the human's bright red smeared in long lines where it had fallen and risen again, again, and again. The crowd had changed. No longer one voice screaming for the beast's victory. Now it was divided, chaotic, even louder than before. Thousands of aliens shouted at once, their words clashing like storms. But one chant was rising above the rest, uniting voices from every corner. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The monster snarled, its claws clenched. Its burning eyes darted toward the crowd. It hated the sound, hated the weakness it felt creeping into its chest. These were its spectators, its worshippers. They had come to cheer its strength. Yet here they were, screaming for the small, fragile human who should have been crushed long ago. The beast roared to silence them, a roar so loud the barriers shook. But the chant continued. The voices would not stop. The human stood again, bent and broken, his breath shallow, his side burned with fire from the wounds, his shoulder was slick with blood, and every bone in his ribs screamed. But he stood tall, fists raised, his smile faint but still shining. He looked at the beast, calm eyes locked on the creature's massive form. And then he moved, not charging, not striking wildly. He began to circle. The crowd fell quieter, watching. The beast tilted its head, confused. Its claws twitched, but it didn't strike yet. It waited, growling low. The human dragged his foot across the dirt, tracing lines as he walked. He glanced at the broken chains littering the arena floor, left behind from past battles. Heavy links, half buried in dust, some still attached to shattered posts. He noted the jagged rocks, the shattered walls, the cracks in the ground where the beast's strikes had torn deep. He was bleeding, broken, but thinking. The beast roared again, charging. Its claws swept sideways, a deadly blur. The human dropped low, rolling through dust, barely missing death by inches. His hands grabbed one of the heavy broken chains as he passed. He pulled it free from the rubble, dragging its weight behind him. The crowd gasped. Some shouted. Some began to realize what he was doing. The beast turned, snarling, and lunged again. Its tail whipped like a spear. The human leapt, swinging the chain upward. The links wrapped around the tail once, twice, before snapping tight. The sudden weight pulled the tail sideways, slamming it into the ground instead of his body. The beast roared in frustration, thrashing, trying to shake free. The human dug his heels into the dirt, the chain ripping through his palms. Blood poured from his hands, but he held on long enough for the beast to stumble, its balance broken. The crowd erupted in shock. The chant rose again. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The beast tore the chain loose at last, flinging it across the pit. But the human was already moving. He sprinted, his body trembling with exhaustion, and dug toward another weak point in the ground. One of the monster's earlier strikes had cracked the arena floor, leaving deep fissures. The human positioned himself near it, fists raised again, breathing heavy but steady. The beast charged, claws glowing with fury. The ground shook as it thundered closer. At the last second, the human twisted aside. The beast's weight slammed into the cracked floor. With a deafening boom, the ground collapsed beneath its massive body. Its claws scraped for grip, its tail lashed wildly, but half its body sank into the hole. Dust exploded into the air. The crowd went wild. The human staggered backward, coughing blood, but smiling wider now. His plan had worked. The beast roared in frustration, its body thrashing as it tried to climb free. The hole wasn't deep enough to trap it forever, but it was enough to slow it, enough to show the crowd, and the beast itself, that the human was more than just stubborn flesh. He was clever. He was dangerous. "You're not fighting a soldier," the human whispered, voice hoarse but sharp. "You're fighting a human." The beast finally tore itself free, slamming its body against the ground, rising to its full height again. Its scales were cracked now. Blood dripped from its side. Its roars were louder, but the strength behind them was less certain. The human raised his fist again. His body was weak, shaking, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. His smile widened, not mocking, but fierce, unbreakable. The crowd's chant thundered through the arena, louder than any roar. The beast looked down at him, chest heaving, claws trembling. It had fought armies. It had destroyed machines. It had been feared across worlds. Yet now, facing a single broken man, it felt cornered in a way it had never known. For the first time, the monster realized this was not its prey. This was its challenger. And this battle was no longer about survival. It was about who would break first. The human tilted his head, blood dripping down his chin, and whispered with that unshakable smile, "Your greatest challenge is my body. It's my will." The beast roared again, louder than ever, but the crowd's answer drowned it out. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The fight was no longer one-sided. The turning point had come. The arena was no longer just a place of blood sport. It had become something greater, something unforgettable. The crowd was alive, their chant echoing like thunder. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The beast paced, claws digging into the stone floor. Its chest heaved, its roars echoed with fury. But beneath the sound was something else, uncertainty. Its scales were cracked, its blood stained the ground, its strength still vast but shaken. For the first time, the monster knew the truth. This human was not prey. The human stood opposite it, bent and bloody. His ribs ached, his arms shook with every lift of his fist, and his legs threatened to buckle. He should not have been alive. Yet he stood. He raised his fist again, his eyes locked on the beast. And on his lips was that same impossible smile. The crowd felt it. The monster felt it. This was no longer just a fight of strength. This was a battle of wills. The beast roared, charging. The ground shook as its massive body thundered across the pit. Claws slashed, jaws opened, teeth dripping venom. The human moved, his body sluggish from pain but guided by precision. He ducked left, then right, rolling beneath a claw, stumbling but still upright. The beast struck again, its tail whipping like a blade. The human twisted. The tail grazed his arm and tearing open more flesh. Blood sprayed. He fell to one knee, gasping. The beast raised a claw high, ready to end it with one final strike. The crowd screamed, some in horror, some in defiance, their voices clashing with the roar of the monster. But the human's voice cut through. Not a shout, not a scream, a whisper, "Not yet." And with that, he moved. He threw himself sideways, rolling just as a massive claw slammed down where he had been. The impact cracked the floor wide, sending up a burst of stone and dust. The human pushed himself up, barely able to stand, blood dripping from his side. But his eyes burned brighter than ever. He staggered backward, toward one of the shattered chains still lying on the ground. His fingers closed around the metal links, his knuckles white with strain. He dragged it forward, wrapping it quickly around his arm, the weight almost too much for his broken body. The beast snarled, turning toward him again, ready to crush him once and for all. The human smiled wider, blood staining his teeth. "Come on." The monster roared, charging. Its claws raked the air, its jaws snapped, its tail whipped. The human stood his ground. At the last moment, he lunged forward, the chain in his hands. He leapt, using the monster's own momentum, wrapping the chain around its wounded joint. The place he had struck again and again. The links tightened, digging deep. The beast howled in pain, thrashing wildly. The human was flung upward, slamming against its shoulder, but he clung to the chain, wrapping it tighter, anchoring himself with all his remaining strength. The crowd went mad. Tens of thousands on their feet, screaming, their voices a storm. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The beast slammed itself against the wall, trying to crush him. The human's ribs cracked again, his vision blurred, but he held on. With one final heave, he swung himself upward, climbing along the chain, dragging his broken body toward the beast's head. The monster shook, roared, clawed at itself, but it could not stop him. The human climbed higher, fists clenched, eyes blazing. And then he reached the top, standing on the beast's massive shoulder, swaying, covered in blood and dust. The human drew back his fist. Every muscle screamed. Every bone threatened to snap. But his will burned hotter than fire. The beast raised its head, for eyes locking on him. It roared, louder than ever, the sound splitting the air. But the human only smiled, and with one final cry he struck. His fist slammed into the beast's wounded joint at the base of its skull. The crack echoed like a cannon shot. Scales shattered. Bones split. The monster's roar choked, twisting into a gurgling howl. Its body trembled, massive limbs thrashing. The human struck again. And again. Every punch was weaker than the last, but each carried his unbreakable will. His fist became fire, his body became fury, his spirit became something greater than flesh. With one last strike, the beast collapsed. The ground shook as its body slammed into the arena floor. Dust exploded, covering everything in a thick cloud. The crowd went silent, holding its breath. The human staggered, barely able to stand. He dropped from the beast's shoulder, landing hard, his body broken and still. Slowly, through the dust, he rose again, shaking, bleeding, but smiling. The beast lay still, its glowing eyes dimmed, its breath fading. It was not dead, but it was beaten. The silence lasted only a moment. Then the arena erupted. Voices thundered, filling the sky. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The chant was no longer just a cry of support. It was worship. It was awe. The human raised his fist weakly, blood dripping, his smile faint but unbroken. He had done the impossible. The beast, the undefeated legend, was down. The human had won. The dust was still falling. For a long moment, the arena held its breath. Thousands of eyes stared into the pit, where the monster's massive body lay sprawled, its four glowing eyes dimmed to embers. The beast's chest rose and fell in slow, shuddering breaths. It was alive but beaten. No one had ever seen this sight before. The human stood only a few steps away, swaying on broken legs. His ribs ached with every shallow breath. His side bled freely. His face was pale from exhaustion. His fists hung low, torn and raw, wrapped in blood-soaked cloth. Yet still, on his lips, there was a smile. The crowd erupted. "Who man? Who man? Who man?" The chant shook the very walls of the arena. Species from 100 different worlds shouted in unison, their voices roaring louder than the monster's fury had ever been. Some pounded their fists against the railing. Others raised their arms, and some simply stared in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. The beast groaned, its claws twitching weakly. Slowly, it turned its head toward the man who had brought it down. Its four eyes locked onto him, no longer blazing with hatred, but heavy with something else. Confusion, shame, and a deep, reluctant respect. The human stepped forward, though every movement sent agony through his battered body. He stood before the fallen beast, raised one shaking fist to his chest, and bowed his head once. "Thank you," he whispered. The crowd fell silent at the words. They did not understand. The man had defeated the monster. He had every right to gloat, to taunt, to demand his glory. But instead he gave respect. The beast's eyes flickered. For the first time in its long existence, it lowered its head, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. The arena master's voice broke the silence, booming across the stadium. The impossible has happened. The undefeated beast has fallen, and the victor is human. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Aliens who had once doubted, mocked, or dismissed humanity now shouted in awe. Some even wept, their voices trembling with emotion. The image of the broken man standing tall over the beast burned itself into every mind. The human staggered backward, his legs almost giving out. He fell to one knee, his chest heaving. Medics rushed forward, alien and human alike. But even as they tried to lift him, he waved them off. "I'm not done," he whispered. The crowd hushed, straining to hear. He forced himself back to his feet, standing tall one last time. Blood ran down his arm, his vision blurred, but his voice carried across the arena. "You've seen its roar. You've seen its fury. But you've also seen this." He raised his fist weakly, the smile still on his face. "A human's will. And no roar, no fury, no beast in this galaxy can ever break it." The crowd erupted again, louder than ever. Aliens stomped, roared, hissed, and howled, not for the beast, but for the human. That day, a legend was born. Days later, news spread faster than light. Across star systems, the story was told and retold. Holographic recordings of the fight were replayed in markets, taverns, and homes. The image of a small, broken man standing over a fallen beast, smiling, was etched into history. In the grand halls of alien rulers, debates raged. Who were these humans, and what made them so unshakable? Armies had fallen before the beast, but one man's will had overcome it. Some called it madness, others called it courage, but all agreed on one truth. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The beast itself, now caged again, was never the same. It no longer roared with the same fury. When it looked at its next opponent, it remembered the smile, and it hesitated. The human, he was taking a heel, his body scarred but alive. His name was spoken across worlds, though to many, his name mattered less than what he represented. He was not the strongest. He was not the largest. He did not carry advanced weapons or shining armor, but he stood, he smiled, and he would not break. The lesson, for the aliens who watched, it became more than a story of a fight. It became a story of what humans were. Fragile bodies, yes. Easy to wound, yes. But behind their frail skin and brittle bones burned something indestructible, a will that no roar could shake, a spirit that no fury could break. And across the galaxy, whenever enemies spoke of humans, they remembered the image of one bloodied man in a pit